We are a welcoming congregation committed to supporting one another in our search for spiritual meaning and community. In Unitarian Universalism, you can bring your whole self, your full identity, your questioning mind, your expansive heart. As Unitarian Universalists, we don't have to check our personal background and beliefs at the door. We like to say we don't have to think alike to love alike. If you're new to UU, I encourage you to take note of our mission statement. It's printed on the front of the order of service. We also work together to promote and practice the 8 principles, which are printed on the inside of the order of service. It's our tradition to welcome first and second time visitors, as well as those who just haven't been here in a while. We ask them to stand if you're comfortable and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. Anyone on here on my left? No? No. Anyone on the right?
I'd like to introduce my mom. I'm Heidi. This is my mom, Marie. She's a long-time UU from Silver Spring, Maryland, and now she lives with me.
Welcome, Aaron. So, anyone else?
I'm Michael. It's my sixth time here, I guess, something like that. But I'm an old long-time UU from Norfolk, Virginia. So just check it, starting the new year off correctly.
Well, welcome to you all. If you're interested in learning more about us, or if you'd like to receive a newsletter, or find out how you can become more involved in the community, there's a white card in the back of the pews and on the table in the foyer. You're encouraged to fill out a card and leave it at the front so we can get in touch with you. I think there are no announcements. Excuse me. It's our practice, or it's become our practice, to acknowledge that the land we now occupy hasn't always belonged to us. And therefore, we like to remind people, I did not bring my glasses, it's in the order of service, that CSB acknowledges with respect that the land that we're on today is the ancestral home of the Cherokee and other indigenous peoples. The Cherokee, through stewardship, understanding, and conservation, survive and thrive in this land. We acknowledge their enduring connection to their homeland. Now, if everyone can make sure that their cell phones are silenced, so the service may begin.
If she didn't bring her glasses, I don't feel like I brought my brain today. I'll try. Worship invites us to focus on the transcendental, the intimate, and the worthy. Worship helps us to regain our grip on the fragmented, the obsessive, and the divisive. Worship reminds us that we, empowered by the love we receive and give, may challenge any idol of greed or violence which pollutes the human condition. We ask that you bring to worship something of what you receive, a capacity to heal, to think both critically and poetically, and to experience a growing sense of belonging, rootedness, and blessing. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, and to serve wherever we are needed most. We are so pleased to have this couple with us this morning. As you could already tell from the first song, it'll be a delightful service. I want to tell you a little bit more about both of them. Aditi Sethi is a hospice and palliative care physician, end-of-life doula, and executive director of the Center for Conscious Living and Dying. Soon to be featured in the forthcoming film, The Last Ecstatic Days, Aditi is an emerging and important voice for shifting our culture's understanding and approach to dying, death, and bereavement care. As a child, under the guidance of her parents, Kathy and Ranjit, I'm not sure I'll say it right, and grandparents from India, Aditi studied devotional music from the Sikh and Hindu traditions. Her other music pursuits include playing with her husband, Jay Brown, a musician and hospice music therapist. Aditi and Jay recently formed a group called the Appalachians, not Appalachian, and they play music from the mountains of Western North Carolina. Many of you have told me that you've already heard them at the White Horse. Releasing their CD, Bright Hills, in 2018, the Appalachians play music from the mountains of Western North Carolina, featuring spirited songwriting, tight harmonies, and a lovely layered interplay between dobro, guitars, harp, bass, and banjo. Aditi and Jay are the parents of 3 children and they live in Black Mountain. And those three beautiful children are back there today being cared for by Anna. And I don't want to put them on show, but they are beautiful if you haven't seen them. See them. Jay is a board-certified music therapist, a hospice music therapist, and a teacher in Asheville. He is a prolific songwriter who has been playing guitar since the age of 7 and writing songs since high school. Jay has spent years traveling and playing around the United States, absorbing our rich musical heritage, and has also taken multiple trips to Ghana, West Africa. His eclectic musical taste found expression in 1998 when he became a founding member of Lazy Birds, a band that blends a wide variety of musical styles, including jazz and blues, country and rock and roll, to create a fresh and soul-stirring sound. Jay performs with Aditi, blending Aditi's Indian folk and classical influences with his own folk and original music. From Performing Songwriters magazine came this quote about him. "The secret is out. Jay Brown is the most authentic songster to come out of the Carolina High Country since Doc Watson." The next is hymn number 6, "Just as Long as I Have Breath." I try to choose hymns that went with what they're going to be talking about. I'm not sure it did, but anyway, stand if you're willing and able to do so. Traditions here is sharing joys and concerns with each other. We need to know what's bothering you. We need to know what's making you happy. So please come up and Lee will light a candle for you.
My name is Joy, and it was on Thursday. I got an email from someone, and then they called me, and I don't even want to go into the details. I was completely scammed. Scammed. I am such a sucker. I am so trusting. It won't happen again. I have a big note above my oven that says no. And maybe all of you will be a little more warned.
Hi, I'm Sally, and I myself have been scammed upon occasion. But that's not what this is about. I just want to say that the joy I have today is that I spent Christmas with my family up in Michigan, in Holland, Michigan, and then one of my sons came down and spent a few days with me, so that was a joy. Unfortunately, I had to cancel my trip to the Florida Keys, which was supposed to start on Tuesday because of the whole COVID craziness. But I am looking forward to a great birthday anyway.
Morning. My name is Larry Perlman, and I have a concern. Our friend Ann Silman went down to Florida to be with her family and did eventually get home. Her flight were canceled, like 8 million other flights, but she eventually did get home. But she came home with a really bad cold. She's not feeling well, which is why she isn't here today. She's going to be tested at her residence for COVID, but she doesn't think it is that. She thinks it's just, when she was down there, the grandkids got colds and then everybody got their colds. So keep her in mind.
I forgot to add one more thing. I just have another joy is that one of my other sons, not the one who came here, but he lives in Boulder, Colorado, and had to evacuate because of the wildfires. But he says now they have a foot of snow on the ground, and he's back home and everything is good.
Hi, I'm Evan. It's a little hot. And I've had lots of joys over the last month, but I wanted to call out specifically Deb and Marty, who helped us step in and do a lot of videoing and take care of all of that while I was gone.
We're so glad you're back.
It was a little tenuous about getting back, but everything worked out very, very smoothly. We were in Ireland for the last month and happy to be back. And I've got lots of stories that I'm sure we'll be telling over lots of years. So thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joe Marks, and this is my third time here because it's a wonderful program. It's called Thinking More. I don't know, about a month ago, who just really inspired me and continues to inspire me because I've taken classes with her. Last week I was here to see Maggie dance and watch her husband, the King, come in. And today we're here to really learn and experience something else that we need to, maybe particularly at this time in our life. I'm filled with joy, love, and community. Yesterday was just an amazing day. It started with community, with some like-minded folks in a meeting, and we had more folks over for lunch and conversation and love, and then we all went to, the 5 of us went to a sound meditation with Gary and Chris Rosser, which was really impactful. So I'm just overwhelming it, and so I just wanted to share that, and hopefully you feel some of that. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Rochelle. The concern that I have is just for all the United States and all the countries who are dealing with this horrible COVID outbreak that we're having right now. The degree of caregiver fatigue across the world is just absolutely unimaginable. You know, I talk to folks all over, and they're all dealing with the same thing, and that's just wondering how we're gonna get through, you know, this surge, and if there's gonna be another one in January, since we just had the New Year's holiday. So my concern is, you know, that we continue to keep all of those caregivers in our hearts and lift them up. And my joy is that no matter how tired you are. I mean, I'm working 80-hour work weeks right now, trying to keep up with people from a telephonic perspective who are sick. The joy is that if you can tap in to that energy of the all that is, there is always more energy so that you can give it out. And so that's my joy.
Good morning, I'm Maggie Moon. My joy is to thank you all, and especially Anna Linda, for the program last week and for her creativity and amazing talent to create that program and to allow me to dance. So thank you so much. My concern is that my son Jonathan, whom you haven't really met, he's in Philadelphia. He's a musician and videographer. He leaves this week for an extended trip to Africa and India to create a video for a nonprofit called Right Sharing of World Resources, which they do micro lending to women in third world countries. This project has been put off for 2 years, and because of the pandemic, they seem to be going. It's crazy time, but I hope that he can travel safely. So I really appreciate your thoughts and prayers for my son, Jonathan. Thank you.
Well, Norris is settled into Aston Park. There's such a thing as settling in. Just think good thoughts for him, that he can feel peaceful, less anxious. Somehow, I can feel less sad, because right now what I feel is sad. I don't feel anxious anymore because I'm taking a pill for that. But I feel sad. And it's painful to see him, but I'm stubborn like every day anyway. So I thought it would be easier when I was with the caregiver all the time. It's a different kind of hard.
I'm Diane again, and you'll see me popping up constantly this morning. Anyway, my husband is quite ill. It's not COVID. He's been tested. He has not eaten anything solid since last Monday. So of course he's weak. And Michael, our minister, is with him right now because I didn't feel that I could leave him, and I couldn't leave everything up to somebody else at the last minute. So I just want you to, we hope to figure out what in the world is wrong with him. And Lee, if you'll please light a candle for those unexpressed joys and concerns. Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Clark Glenn, and I'm here with my son Tabor. We were last here in November and really enjoyed this community so much. And we have an overwhelming joy to share. As we walked in, you might have heard my son exclaim, "That's Aditi and Jay." So we were completely surprised to see our friends here singing such beautiful music to welcome us back again. So that's really wonderful. We look forward to hearing what Aditi has to say today, and more music. And then I also have a concern to share, which is my aunt, who's also my godmother, passed away a couple days ago. And that's down in Mobile, Alabama, which is my hometown, which I love my hometown, but Mobile is not really known as a bastion of acceptance of the current situation. We'll leave it there. So my family's having a family gathering, and I'm trying to decide whether I'll be leaving tonight to drive down to Mobile and be there for our small family gathering. But anyway, I really love my godmother. She's a good person. And I'd like to light a candle for her.
I'm Misty, and I just wanted to share that this past week, I found out that I'm going to be a godmother to my cousin's little girl. And she's due on my birthday.
I'm Andy, and I have a joy that is unmitigated. My brother's wife's daughter, Clarissa, recently got married and relocated to Providence from Albuquerque. And Clarissa is my only niece, and even though it's by marriage and not birth. And she's the first person who ever called me Uncle Andy. And so I'm very happy for her in her new life in Providence.
It's so lovely to be here. I'd like to share a practice for death meditation. It's a song that, it's a poem that came through Taryn Estes, who's the founder of the Conscious Dying Institute. And she's been training end-of-life doulas for many years. And Sherry Kay here was a fellow doula graduate. And I was so moved by this poem, having been a death worker for, 20 years or so. At the time of the doula training, and when I heard this poem, it was so potent for me, and I set it to song. So that's what you'll hear this today.
Return to God. I release my body to the earth. I retrieve my energy from all worldly things. I relax into the source of my being. Death is my teacher. I'm prepared for this moment all of my life. All teachings converge for this departure. The truth of impermanence envelops me. I am free from suffering.
Please give generously to support this institution. You've heard some accolades this morning about how meaningful this place is to so many of us. So please give us your financial support. Thank you.
I had some notes up here. Maybe one more. One more sheet. Can you all hear me? Okay. I just want to say something about the practice for death meditation. Just that title, A Practice for Death, is something that I never even knew of or pondered when I first heard of it. So it offers an approach to reflecting on our last breath. And I couldn't have timed it better for the children to chime in right at the end of that, because holding both life and death, and that's what this is about. So I'm grateful that you all showed up, even knowing what the topic was about. So thank you. I'd like to start with a guided meditation for those of you who are open to this. And it's a meditation on your final breath. You can begin by bringing your attention to your body, Close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. Notice your body seated in the chair, feeling the weight of your body, grounded, making sure your low back is supported, shoulders are relaxed. And take a few breaths. Now imagine you are in your final days of your life. In what setting do you find yourself? Are you in your room at home, in a hospital room, in a nursing home? Your mind may wander to other deaths that you've experienced or witnessed. You can let it wander, but also bring it back to where you imagine your final days. Who surrounds you? Are you alone? Do you have family by your side? Friends? What smells do you smell? What sounds do you hear? Children, perhaps? What do you see from your bed or chair? What's the view? Do you feel prepared for this transition? Are your affairs in order? Is there anything left undone? Do you have any hopes? Any fears? Have you shared these with anyone? How are you feeling about the life you have lived? We'll sit here for a moment. Okay. You can bring your awareness back to this room. Be aware of your physical body, housing your spirit. And take a deep breath. And when you're ready, for those of you with your eyes closed, you can open your eyes. So for some of you, this meditation may have brought emotions of excitement and curiosity and peace. And for others, it may have brought up some fear and uncertainty and doubt, and quite frankly, dread. And perhaps some of you have felt a resistance to even doing the meditation and going through it, because it really is sort of unimaginable and surreal that at some point your breath will cease and you will no longer be in this body. So understanding your relationship with death, which is a really individual, unique relationship, and understanding your awareness of death and how that impacts your day-to-day life and exploring it can really have an impact on how your final days play out and how you approach those final days when your time comes. I want to take a moment to honor all the deaths that have occurred in the last 2 years during this pandemic, from COVID and from other illnesses. Cancer, heart disease, lung disease, dementia. Clark, I'm not sure what your aunt died of, but honoring her transition. And acknowledging that it has been an emotional and complex time for all involved and on many layers. And I also want to acknowledge that even during a pandemic, you can approach death like life with intention, curiosity, and awareness. And no matter what limitations, perceived or actual, you can actually engage with death with an open mind and open heart. In our generally death-phobic culture, death-averse, death-avoidant, I would say, death is really removed from our daily lives. Many people I know have never been at the bedside of a loved one, not experienced death, even in a home setting. All of the deaths they've experienced are in the hospital. And others have had, quite frankly, traumatic experiences of death. We think that, oh, the hospice movement, the palliative care movement has come a long way, which it has. But on a daily basis, I hear stories of, of transitions in ICU that are not quite peaceful, that the conversations being so late that there is no meaningful end-of-life care experience for folks. And as a result of the lack of experience and exposure to death, death is felt to be morbid, and people truly have an intense fear. Thank you. And some of that fear comes from, what does it look like? What's the process of dying? Will I have pain? Will I have suffering? What will happen to my loved ones? What will happen to my children? And for others, it's just an intense discomfort, even talking about, so I've had this frog in my throat for a while, so forgive me. Intense discomfort, even talking about the practicalities and details around death for themselves and their loved ones. During the dying process, before the dying process, and ultimately, these conversations aren't had. So David Kessler, who's an author and grief worker I admire, he says that we plan more for a weekend getaway than we do our own death, which is so true. And I found in my work with the dying that there's never a good time to have these conversations. When you're healthy and young, people say, oh, we don't need to talk about it, we got time. When you get diagnosed with an illness, now's not the time to talk about it. You gotta beat this, fight this, cure this, which is all well and good to put positive energy, but talking about death doesn't make death come sooner. You're not gonna jinx it. So then you're going through treatments, and the oncologist will let you know of treatment options and experimental treatments, and say, once this no longer works, then we're in uncharted territory, quote unquote. I've heard of this recently. But then there's no conversation about what that uncharted territory means. So there's a lot of room for improvement, I should say. And fear is a normal response, and a normal part of the human condition. And of course, the great unknown is uncertain and a mystery. But what we've done with that fear is really avoid and distract ourselves from death. And that has led to a general lack of preparedness. And you may have experienced this in your own life with your loved ones, and may want to do it differently. So I started volunteering for hospice when I was 17, 20 years ago. How old am I? 41. So, however many years ago. And undergrad at Davidson College, not far from here. And then I ended up studying religious studies and medical humanities. And so for me, death and medicine sort of fit. It was a good fit. It's really my calling. And then I did family medicine training here in Nashville and did further training in hospice palliative medicine. And I worked for 10 years in an inpatient hospice house. And part of what I wanted to share today is what options exist, and then let you know of a movement that is unfolding that offers a complement and a supportive role in the whole picture of how we navigate death. So hospice is, some of you may already know, I talk about it in terms of a system of delivering care and then a philosophy of that care. So the philosophy is that someone who has 6 months or less left to live can live a full life until they take their last breath, with support and with guidance. And then it's a system in place with social worker, chaplain, nursing, CNA, physician support that comes into your home, nursing home, or wherever residence you are, to support those final days. Now, my experience, as much as I love and value, and I'm still part of the hospice world, is that there are gaps in how we approach this chapter. And as far as when to enroll in hospice, when to have these conversations, when to stop treatments, how to plan practically, how to plan socially, how to plan, how to make sure you have the support you need, financial arrangements, all of those things aren't being done fully in the medical system, and we can't rely on the medical system to do it for us. Though palliative care, you might have heard that term, it's basically a consultative service, like you would see a neurologist for your brain issues, you'll see a kidney doc for your renal doc for your kidney issues. You would see a palliative care doc to help create a holistic approach and plan of care moving forward as you navigate treatments. But those services aren't always available. They're not always, it is emerging, and there's a lot of work being done to make those treatments and services accessible, but they're just not readily available. And the beauty is hospice has come so far, and it's 100% covered by insurance, and palliative care is covered, and all those things are beautiful and wonderful successes for hospice. But in my work, I found that people were still coming to their deathbed unprepared, terrified, with so much undone, and so much fear. And so that's been part of my journey, is moving forward, how to address those gaps. And I'm so grateful for conversations like this, just to have the conversation with community. I really believe we have to look outside the medical system to shift our culture. And that is happening around the country, around the world. And similar to how the birth movement really took off and kind of helped women be empowered again to not fear birth so much, and to not see it as a medical event, though definitely using medicine. I'm in no way saying we don't want to work together, but to view death as a medical event, which it often is, takes away from the social and the cultural aspects of such as a rite of passage, a sacred transition, a natural part of life. So this movement around reclaiming death and having communities engage in death in a different way, and really having support along the journey. So that's where this idea of the death doula, or you've heard the death walker, death doula, death midwife, comes in. And it's just more sacred approaches to death care and grief work. So this idea of conscious dying, it's a term that actually, when I thought about the business that we created, the nonprofit, which is in the works, Center for Conscious Living and Dying, people said, don't use the word conscious. It's a hippie woo-woo word, And I'm sort of hippie woo-woo in some ways. but really, this idea of a conscious death, the word conscious meaning awake, aware, eyes wide open, that to me makes sense, and that's all you can do, really. You can only prepare so much. It is really an individual journey, and much of it we don't know. We have wisdom and guidance from sacred scripture and saints and poets, but we really don't know. So I've had the opportunity and the privilege of supporting people in this conscious way, this conscious death. And what it looks like is, and I'm honoring Paula and the soul Ethan, you heard about the film that's in the works, a 36-year-old with a brain tumor. It looks like approaching death with honesty and clarity and directness. It's not all rosy, right? There's intense emotions that arise, but it's being with those emotions. It's not, Mama, hush, 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 don't worry about death. You're not dying. I mean, people on their deathbed telling their mother, who knows she's dying, and internally she knows, Mama, you're not dying, let's not talk about it. So it's being with the discomfort, it's being with the fear. It's how we live. If you choose to live your life that way, you will be comfortable with this approach to death. So that's more incentive to practice being present with all your emotions now. It involves cultivating a presence with death, a presence with life, and all of that you can be doing now. And it's open communication, and it's embracing life's mystery. There's a poet saint in India, or he's a teacher, Ananda Marga tradition. His name is Ananda Murthy, or Baba, and he founded this spiritual group, and he wrote his autobiography for his disciples because they incessantly bugged him about doing so, and he put it on a sheet of paper, his whole autobiography on one sheet of paper. And he said, this is what I want to share with you all. I was a mystery. I am a mystery. And I will always be a mystery. So I'm often asked, what are the options for me as I'm preparing to leave my body? And I tell folks who don't have children, some of them ask me and they don't have children. Some of them ask me and they have children, but they're far away and they don't know if they can rely on their support to help them transition. Others feel like their kids aren't going to be able to support them during their transition. And what I say is that these are the options. Being at home with your loved ones supporting you, which can be, as we talked about, the caregiving burden. It can be a lot because death is a process and it's an uncertain process. 90% of us will have time to prepare, 10% won't. Unexpected deaths. But it is a process, and it can occur over weeks to months to years with dementia. So you can be in your home with support from your family, hire support in your home, which can be very expensive, 24/7. You can be in a nursing home, die in a hospital, again, a crisis-driven response to life and death. But there are really no other ways. And I feel like there's a movement also happening around community-supported end of life care. And that's really where I'm feeling the most excitement and interest, and my energy is taking me there. And there are homes around the country called Omega Homes, the Omega Home Network, that has created these homes. They're all nonprofit, and they're run by community and volunteers who train and understand how to be with death and be present with death and learn how to be a caregiver, which is, we don't have to have professionals doing basic care, you know, and they're burning out, and they're, you know, they need support too. So it's time to get creative and engage with death in a sacred way. So I have so much to say. I have to wrap it up now, but this is just a taste. My kids are obsessed with the Beatles, and I came across, I guess on a YouTube, somehow it just rolled to the next YouTube video, and it was George Harrison discussing his experience of life and bliss and consciousness. And he says, I get confused when I look around the world and I see everybody's running around, and as Bob Dylan said, he not busy being born is busy dying. And yet nobody's trying to figure out what's the cause of death and what happens when you die. I mean, that to me is the only thing really that is of any importance. The rest is all secondary. And I thought, wow. So the purpose of life, he said, is to find out who I am, why I'm here, and where am I going. So, things you can do now to bring death awareness into your life and to help prepare you for that transition whenever it may come is just sitting with the discomfort of your mortality, leaning into it, and getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Being aware of how resistance in every aspect of your life creates suffering. You see it in life, you see it in death. And also feeling into how being unprepared and powerless and uninformed feels, as opposed to being knowledgeable and empowered. So you can advocate for yourself and your loved ones. Living a full life true to who you are in alignment with your values. You know, death, as Sogyal Rinpoche says, a Tibetan Buddhist monk, death is a mirror in which the true meaning of life is reflected. So, on that note, thank you.
I was looking around at this group this morning and thinking, I remember when Hillary Clinton said it takes a village. Well, it takes so many people from this congregation to make things go smoothly. Yeah, it really does. I mean, lighting the candles, playing the music, ushering, taking the collection, they all fit together because people are so willing to do it. Our next hymn, or last hymn, is one that was voted the favorite hymn of all you used a couple of years ago. And it really is a lovely hymn, The Spirit of Life. Please stand if you're willing and able to 123.
Spirit of life,
do it right now. Because Michael often begins his talks with jokes. So these all have to do with New Year's Eve. Or New Year's Day. At the Garrett Club, a famous London club of which several leading actors were members, on New Year's Eve, pardon me, Freddie Lawndale was asked by Seymour Hicks to make up over a quarrel he had previously had with one of his members. You must. It is very unkind to be unfriendly at such a time. Go over now and wish him a Happy New Year. Freddie crossed the room, spoke to his enemy, and said, I wish you a Happy New Year, but only one. On another note, how about all of us making a New Year's resolution that we keep to discard old prejudices and create a wave of practical change that will sweep across this nation which so badly needs it. The new year does dawn bright and mysterious. May it be one of inner peace and world peace for all living things. Thank you so much for coming.
We'll close with a Gillian Welsh tune.
Well, since it's almost, well, it's just one day after New Year's Day, right? Yeah. This is called New Lang Syne. Every day's a new year, each night a New Year's Eve. You wake up to a new you, a resolution to believe. So light the Roman candles, write your name with sparklers in the sky. It may be cold as Christmas or hot as 4th of July. Every day's a new year. You can't remember what you did. The whole thing's a blurry mystery. Maybe best just leave it hid. So light the bottle rockets, hoot and holler and say yippee. The fireworks stands will never close in sunny Tennessee. Every day's a new year, each night a New Year's Eve. You wake up to a new you, a resolution to believe. So watch the eyes grow wider, bright lights and midnight skies. For every day's a new year, don't let a year go by. So watch the eyes grow wider, bright lights and midnight skies. For every